Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Angela.
And I'm Wesley.
Today is the 29th of March. We're on day 2 of our 2-day story in the magazine, and this one is about the English monarchy and Queen Elizabeth II.
好，我们的中文标题是英国百年君主制，伊丽莎白女王不凡的一生。
So we've learned a lot yesterday. We learned so many political terms. Like if you want to understand how to talk about government, this article is a great primer in all of these terms. Because we're not just talking about monarchy, we're also talking about constitutionally organized government. So basically talking about the government of Britain, and there's a lot of very, very good vocabulary words in here. So look it over. What we did talk about is that Britain is actually an amalgamation of 4 different countries, which is why you can't say England. When people are like, oh, he's from England, I'm like, is he actually from England or is he from Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland? You know, that's actually, England is only 1/4 of the total territory of Britain or the United Kingdom. And so the words actually matter because, you know, you might be British but not English. And the English are not actually considered very well by the people who are not English. Because England basically started off by colonizing the other ones. It's really weird is that recently on the internet it's come up that a lot of British students do not know that the first colony of the United Kingdom was Ireland. They don't know this. So that's wild because that was where Britain practiced colonization before they started working on the rest of the world.
好，所以这个 Angela 老师是讲到了很多东西。好，那像英国，因为其实它是一个非常老牌的殖民国家。好，那而且它现在我们昨天有谈到，它现在有这个4 countries 来组成的，但是我们也知道，像北爱尔兰其实也有一些这个国家认同的问题等等的。所以这个另外我们也昨天也知道，英国它是一个所谓的君主立宪制啊，它有统治者有君主，但是呢，同时它也有一个根据宪法所组成的一个政府，所以两个都有权利。但是现在呢，感觉起来这个君王是越来越是象征性的。那实际上政府的运作全部都是由这一个根据宪法所成立的政府来进行。
So we talked about how, the power used to be like when it was set up, it was meant that the king or queen had equal power to parliament and the government, but now it's more or less, the power is more or less on the parliament and government side, and the king or queen is becoming like a rubber stamp.
好像橡皮图章一样了哈，这国会送来的法案，他们好像昨天文章最后有讲到说，他们不得不签，没有别的选择，只好签字或者签署，让这个法案生效。
And now that Queen Elizabeth has passed away, a lot more people are talking seriously about abolishing the monarchy. While Queen Elizabeth was still alive, she was well loved, so only the really diehard people. But King Charles is not nearly as well loved. He is very well unloved, really, actually. And so only the diehard monarchists are going to keep fighting for it. And I think the movement to abolish the monarchy might gain more steam now. Although, you know, it's easier to keep things the same, so I don't know how far that will go.
好，那另外就是因为伊丽莎白女王在世的时候呢，她备受爱戴，所以比较没有人会谈说这个要不要废除王室这个问题。但是现在新的王继位之后呢，因为新的王他的这个人望显然是比不上伊丽莎白女王，所以可能也许未来会有越来越多人开始认真的讨论是不是应该干脆把这个君王制废掉。
So today we're going to talk about King Charles and Elizabeth as people.
那今天呢，我们来看看这 King Charles 跟这个 Elizabeth 作为一个人有什么特别的地方。
Okay, so I'll read the article now. The present monarch of the UK is King Charles III, but he only recently ascended the throne following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Queen Elizabeth had a remarkable reign, serving from 1952 to 2022, and it will probably take a long time for many people not to think of her when it comes to the British monarchy. Elizabeth had an extraordinary life. She is the longest reigning British monarch, but that path was not expected of her from the beginning. Born in 1926, Elizabeth was the eldest child of the Duke of York, later King George VI. The Duke was second in line to the throne behind his elder brother Edward and was not expected to become king. However, shortly after King Edward VIII came to the throne in 1936, he abdicated later that year, giving the crown to his brother, which in turn made Elizabeth the next heir. When she became heir to the throne, Elizabeth knew she would one day be queen, but her succession came sooner than anyone had expected when her father, King George VI, passed away in 1952 at the age of 56. Thus, Elizabeth became the monarch and head of state when she was only 25 years old. During her 70-year reign, Elizabeth served alongside 15 different prime ministers. She worked tirelessly and regularly traveled to the different countries in the Commonwealth that recognized her as their monarch. Throughout her reign, she saw incredible changes in the UK and the world and witnessed various scandals at home and abroad. But through it all, she remained an iconic figurehead for the United Kingdom.So we really didn't actually talk about King Charles. We talked about Elizabeth.
好，所以我们主要还是谈的这个伊丽莎白女王。
So the present monarch of the UK is King Charles III, and it is really weird to say that because Queen Elizabeth has been the queen for my entire life, and now there's this new dude, and it's very hard to get your head around it.Because he only recently ascended the throne. To ascend the throne means to go and get up on the throne, which you can only do if you're the monarch. And this was following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II.
好，所以呢 present 就是当前的、目前的 the current monarch of the UK， 英国目前的君王是国王查尔斯三世，但是呢，他只是 recently 最近 not long ago ascended the throne 登上了王位。好 ascend 是 to move up 的意思啊，或者是 to rise to a position of higher rank。好，因为这个 ascend 这个 as 就是 to 的意思，那个 ascend 其实 climb 的意思，爬的意思，就往上爬了。好，所以他登上了王位 following after 的意思，在什么之后呢？在 the death of his mother， 在他母亲过世之后。那他母亲是谁呢？同位语告诉你，就是伊丽莎白女王。
So Queen Elizabeth had a remarkable reign. A reign is a period of being in power if you're a king or queen. And she served as queen from 1952 to 2022. And it will probably take a long time for many people not to think of her when it comes to the British monarchy. Not only because she was there for so long, but because she did such a good job at PR during her monarchy.Yeah,
那个伊丽莎白女王呢，她 had a remarkable 就是非凡的、令人赞叹的unusual 或者是 extraordinary。好，我们下面也会用到这个是 extraordinary。好，非凡的、不寻常的 reign 就统治。好，她统治呢，她这个治国是非常的有非凡的成就，令人惊叹。那她是从1952年到2022年，她的服务她的国家，也就统治她的国家。然后呢？也许要花很长的一段时间，人们才会当人们 when it comes to 说到这个英国的君王制的时候，不想到他，这可能要很长的一段时间。也就是接下来很长一段时间，尽管他已经过世了，但是大家一说到英国的君主制，大概很多人马上就会想到他。
Elizabeth had an extraordinary life or an extraordinary life. She did not have an ordinary life. I mean, originally she didn't because she was the queen, but even for a queen, she had a very weird and unusual life.
所以伊丽莎白呢，她有一个非常不寻常、非凡的人生。
She is the longest reigning British monarch. In the entire history of the British monarchy, she is the one who held the reins the longest. But that path was not expected of her from the beginning. She wasn't even supposed to be in line for the throne. She wasn't supposed to be in succession.
那她是怎么样呢？是 the longest reigning， 就是统治最久的这个 British monarch， 英国的君王。但是呢 that path 就是那条路，就是她作为统治最久的英国君王这条路呢 was not expected of her。当我们说 it was not expected of her， 就是这原本不是对她的预期，就原本没有人预期她会做到这件事情，叫做 was not expected of her。那而且是 from the beginning， 就从一开始就没有人预期到说，他居然会成为英国统治最久的这个君王。
So born in 1926, Elizabeth was the eldest child of the Duke of York. Later, King George VI. V is 5 and 1 is after the V, so you add it together and that becomes 6. That was the logic of the Romans and we're still using it.
好，所以呢，他是在1926年出生的。他was the the eldest child， 他是最年长的孩子 of the Duke of York， 是约克公爵最年长的孩子。那约克公爵是谁呢？他后面括号就是后来的这个英国国王乔治六世。
So his original title when she was born is Duke of York, and he was the second in line to the throne. That meant that there was someone else before him who was going to become king. And since the guy he was behind was in perfect health and everyone knew that he was going to become king, the Duke was like, yep, I'm just going to be a prince royal in the family for the rest of my life, and that's cool. He was very chill about it. He was fine with it. He was behind his older brother, Edward, and was not expected to become king because Edward was fine. Everyone was like, yep, Edward's going to be king, and the Duke of York is just going to be the Duke of York the rest of his life.
好，所以 the Duke 就是 the Duke of York was second in line to the throne. 所谓的 to be second in line to the throne 就是他是继承王位的第二顺位。Behind 在这里就是次于就是跟在谁后面，他第二位嘛，所以前面还有一个，前面那个人是谁呢？是他的 older brother， 是他的哥哥 Edward。然后呢 the Duke 就是 the Duke of York was not expected to， 就是没有被预期会 become king， 就是因为他的 Edward 大家觉得不错啊 ，Edward 当王啊，而且身体也健康啊等等的，所以本来没有人想到这个 Duke 会成为国王的。
However, and this is what happened, and it was such a shock at the time, shortly after King Edward VIII came to the throne in 1936. The reason why their names change is that when you become king, you take on a new name. Okay, so he was become the King Edward VIII, and he came to the throne, he ascended the throne in 1936, and he abdicated. He gave it up. To abdicate is kind of like to desert your duties. It's a negative word, saying like, dude, guy just left and resigned and was like decided not to be king. Who does that? And he did it later that year. The reason he did that is because he fell in love with an American woman who was a commoner and he wanted to marry her and she could not become the queen. And so he's like, fine, I just won't be the king then so I can marry this lady. And I think they divorced like later on. Oh, she was a divorced American woman, which was worse for whatever reason. Yeah. So anyway, so he's like, yeah, I'm just taking off. And everyone was like, what? And so he gave the crown to his brother, who was not at all prepared to take this on. And he was kind of like, what? No, you're supposed to be the king. Why me? And so then that in turn made Elizabeth the next heir because she's the oldest daughter of the guy who's now going to be king. And so she's like, wait, what? I'm the heir? Okay, wow, new information.
好，但是呢 shortly 就是 soon in a short time， 很快的在这个爱德华八世 came to the throne， 登上王位，这在1936年。他1936年登上王位之后呢，很快的他就 abdicated， 他退位。好，这个 ab 就是 away 的意思，字根。好，那这个后面一半，它原来字根的意思就是 proclaim， P-R-O-C-L-A-I-M， 所以就是我宣布我要走了，叫退位。所以他1936年就退位了。那刚刚这个 Angel 老师讲他为什么退位呢？因为他爱上了一个离了婚的美国的妇女，是个平民，所以为了要跟这位女士在一起，他就决定不做国王了。好，不爱江山爱美人。那他就 giving the crown to his brother， 他就把王位传给了这个 the Duke of York。 好，那因为这样子 which in turn as a result 就使得 Elizabeth 变成了 the next heir， 就是下一顺位的继承人因为他本来这个是在他爸爸之后嘛，那现在他爸爸成为王了，他父亲成为王了，那他就是下一位的继承人了。
And so when she became heir to the throne, Elizabeth knew that she would one day be queen. Yeah, of course, that's going to happen. But her succession, her going up to the throne, came sooner than anyone had expected. When her father, King George VI, passed away in 1952 at the age of 56. No one expected him to kick the bucket so early, least of all Elizabeth. She figured probably she would become queen in her 60s or 70s or whatever, like King Charles III right now is in his 70s and he's come to the throne. But she went up when she was only 25 years old. She became the monarch and head of state when she was only 25 years old. It's very hard to imagine.
Yeah, 所以当伊丽莎白变成了 heir to the throne， 就是王位继承人的时候呢，她知道 she would 她这个 would 是 will 的过去式 one day， 她有一天她会成为王后，但是呢这个 her succession 她的继位 came sooner than anyone had expected， 他的继位这件事情来得比任何人预料的都还要快 ，sooner than anyone had expected， 因为是过去的过去，所以用过去完整 had expected。好，那这件事情什么时候发生的呢？当他的父亲就是这个乔治六世 passed away 逝世或者驾崩，在1952年的时候，而且很年轻 at the age of 56 56岁的时候就驾崩所以这个伊丽莎白就继位了。好，那就是这样 thus 就是这样呢，这个伊丽莎白变成了君王，然后呢同时成为了 head of state 这个国家元首注意呢 head of state 前面不会加 the。 那当他是仅仅25岁的时候，他就成为了英国的君主，成为了英国的国家元首。
So during her 70-year reign, that is a really long time to be in power. Even if her power was a lot of ceremony, she still had actual power in the government.Elizabeth served alongside 15 different prime ministers, which sounds kind of intense until you realize that sometimes Britain goes through prime ministers like candy. Like last year they had 3, although that was an exceptional time.
Yeah, 所以在他的70年的这个在位期间，在他这个70年的统治期间呢，70-year reign， 那伊丽莎白 served 他服务 alongside 就是跟谁共同这个服务这个英国这个国家呢？他跟15位不同的首相共事过。
So she worked tirelessly, like she took her job seriously. She wasn't like, oh, I'm queen, I'll do whatever I want. She was like, she took it seriously that the holdings of the queen were in her control and under her care, and she paid attention to it, and she did what she thought was the best for it, which you can definitely disagree with, but she tried to do her job seriously, so you can respect her for that. She regularly traveled to the different countries in the Commonwealth. Commonwealth is what was called all the countries that were originally colonies that were then freed as colonies but drawn into like a grouping that was still sort of run or at least advised by the United Kingdom, and they called this the Commonwealth, and they have so it's like a political entity in the world basically. And so all of these countries in the Commonwealth, even though they're independent countries now like Australia, they still recognized her as their monarch. They're like, yeah, we're an independent country, however you're still our queen.
好，所以 the Commonwealth 就是大英国协，所以呢，这个伊丽莎白 worked tirelessly 我们在这里可以翻成孜孜不倦地不会疲倦的，她孜孜不倦地工作。然后呢 regularly 我们可以翻译成经常，她经常 traveled to 会旅行到 the different countries in the Commonwealth， 她会到大英国协的不同国家去那边看一看她会旅行到这些国家去。那这些不同的在大英国协的国家，他们都是怎么样呢？他们都是 recognize， 他们认可或者承认 her， 就认她 as their monarch， 就认伊丽莎白女王作为他们自己的君主。所以这是大英国协蛮特别的一个地方，他们是独立的国家但是呢他们在大英国协里面，所以在名义上面至少他们是这个伊丽莎白是他们的君主。
Throughout her reign, she saw incredible changes in the UK and the world. She lived through World War II. She lived through all of the original colonies of the United Kingdom becoming independent countries. She lived through so much history. She also personally saw various scandals like upsetting problems and bad actions. How do you say bad actions? More better. Basically, people doing bad things at home and abroad. Like her family has pulled some nasty shit. I'm going to say, the whole Princess Di thing is one, and then there's the whole Prince Charles thing is another, and you can Google these things. And at home and abroad. So at home and abroad means like not just in her own personal family, but across the world. But her family does have a lot of influence on the world, so these things are in some ways the same thing.
好，所以 throughout her reign 就是在她统治的在位期间呢 she saw 她看到的 incredible 就是惊人的 changes 改变 incredible, unbelievable, extraordinary 或者 astonishing 都可以。她看到一些惊人的改变，在哪里的惊人改变呢？在英国看到了很多惊人的改变，还有 in the world 全世界她也看到了很多这个惊人的改变。同时她 witnessed 她目睹了 various 就是不同的 scandals 丑闻 at home and abroad， 通常我们讲 at home and abroad 就是指国内外但在这里呢 at home 我们也可以想成就是他自己家里面发生了很多的丑闻，所以他看过了很多。
I forgot about the Prince Andrew thing and also the Prince Harry thing.
Okay.
Like seriously, Google,
Yeah.
especially the Prince Andrew thing, because that's the most like 不可思议的 thing.
Yeah, 所以他们有很多 gossip 也有很多的 scandals 这个皇室。
But through it all, through all of the things that she witnessed and experienced and handled, she remained an iconic figurehead. If something is iconic, it means like she's symbolic, she has meaning. And a figurehead is, again, sort of a meaningful symbol that's a person. And she has done this for the United Kingdom.
好，这个 through it all 翻成中文的话，大概就是类似我们讲的一路走过风风雨雨那种感觉。因为 through it all 就是 through all the circumstances, good or bad， 或者通常其实我们想到是通常比较这个辛苦的事情 throughout all the difficulties 的意思。在中文里面大概类似我们讲一路走过风风雨雨，因为他在位70年嘛，所以这一路来，或者我们讲一路走来 through it all， 他一直是一个 iconic，一个 representative， 一个象征性的代表性的 figurehead 原来是指放在船首，各位看电影里面有时候古时候的那个船的船首常常会有一个雕像，会有一个像在那边，那是 figurehead， 常常是个女神或什么的。那后来 figurehead 就引申成为一个象征性的一个领袖，所以他一路走来，他一直都是做得很好，扮演得很好的，就是一个英国的一个象征性的领袖，代表性的一个领袖，英国的象征。
Okay, we have questions for you, of course, and they're about both days of the 2-day article, so get ready. The first one is, why is the crown mentioned in the first paragraph of the day 1 passage? Why is it the first thing we told you about?
为什么第一天的文章第一段就讲到王冠呢？
The answer is B, to demonstrate how well known the British royal family is.
这个王冠是一个电视剧的剧名，所以提到它，这表示为了要证明英国皇室有多么出名。
And number 2, which of the following is not a function that a monarch has?
好，下列何者不是君主的职责？
The answer is D, they are not making decisions on governmental affairs. That's not their job.
所以答案是 D， 在政府事务上面做决定这不是元首或者英国国王君主的一个职责。
Number 3, time for some quick kind of math and quick study of the article. Which of the following is the correct order of the UK monarchs?
好，下列何者为英国君主的正确顺序？
The answer is C,
答案
which
是
is the C answer being that it goes B, D, A, C. So King Edward VIII, and then King George VI, and then Queen Elizabeth II, and then King Charles III.
答案是 C， 一开始是 B 国王爱德华8世，然后呢是 D 国王乔治6世，然后是 A 女王伊丽莎白2世，然后呢是 C 国王查尔斯3世。
I think we should mention that they're just the second of their name or the eighth of their name. It's not really about the order of the kings and queens. I was confused as a child about this. It's not the order of the kings. It's like King Charles III is the third dude named Charles who was king.
好，所以这个2世3世8世6世其实是指有这样的一个名字的国王的第几个。好，所以他这个不是说他是第几个做国王不是这个意思。
So number 4, what can we not learn about Queen Elizabeth from the day 2 passage?
从第二天的文章里面，我们没有办法得知关于女王伊丽莎白的什么事情呢？
B, she was the youngest British monarch in history.
好，所以答案是 B， 她是历史上最年轻的英国君王君主。这个在第二天文章里面没有明白的讲。
So, that is all we have for you today on the English monarchy and Queen Elizabeth II. But if you're interested in any of these topics, the internet is out there. You may search and research on your own terms. So, we definitely have more Ivy English for you the next time, though, so please join us then. Until then, bye-bye.